Welcome to our new podcast, Kidswear Therapy. If you're listening, remember to hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Kidswear Therapy is a safe space to discuss the ups and downs, the positives, and the irritations of the kidswear industry. So join Linda, myself, and our wonderful guests on Kidswear Therapy.
Katie.
Hi, Linda.
It was so nice to see you down in London again this week.
I know, it's becoming a bit of a weekly thing at the moment, and I hope it remains. Yeah, it was Pitti Lunch, wasn't it?
Pitti Lunch, a fabulous new Italian restaurant, Gattopardo, that we really liked the decor too, didn't we? It's very 70s Italiana.
Yeah, we really lucked out because the Kidswear press were all downstairs in their private function room, which was absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So I fell in love with the walnut table. I don't know about you.
It was luxe. It was pure luxe. And it just took me back. And the music had that kind of 70s Italian disco-y vibe. It just kind of took you out of London and into somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's so nice because it does actually, spoiling your press like that actually does get the best out of us. But what did you take from the Pitti Lunch? What was the most interesting part?
I think they seem very open to looking at new things to do, to lure, more buyers, more brands, very open to how do we operate in this new post-COVID world? Well, can't really say post, it's still with us, isn't it? But, what is needed now? How to entertain and, keep people coming back as well.
Yeah, it felt like they were really open to the conversation. As well, like open to the conversation. And I think that's partly, that's also why we have the podcast as well, is the fact is actually talking a bit, because, they're tricky times at the moment, aren't they? And and we want the trade shows, we need our trade shows, don't we? We need them, you need multiple
meeting
trade
people
shows.
Is so important. It really is. It's so fabulous. And then just seeing the clothes, touching the clothes, looking at the way they move. They're all really important things that you just don't get over the internet.
No, you don't. And it just meeting the people, you can fall in love with the brand, can't you? They can sell the story, and nobody can do that like the designer themselves in person.
And on to this week's podcast. So who's our guest today, Katie?
Our guest today is George Reddings. So she is one half of the duo behind Little Bird. So obviously it was Jools Oliver, who is Jamie Oliver's wife, and they started it back in 2012 with Mother Care, and now
interesting.
Yeah, and so George has been in the business for about 25 years. She's done womenswear, menswear. She did Gap Kids for 10 years in New York. So it should be really interesting to find out a bit more about her story and how she ended up in kids fashion and what she's doing now.
Ah, fantastic. What a resume.
Yeah, I know.
Here we go then.
Well, welcome to Kidswear Therapy, George.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
We met, didn't we, at the Fuse Comms press day, and we managed to kind of grab you and say, can you come on the podcast? Because obviously you have been working in this industry for over 25 years. And yeah, we just want to have a chat about all the different, stages, throughout your career and the different businesses and everything. But first of all, with Kidswear Therapy, we kind of get into the childhood aspect of it first. So I guess what we want to know is what did you want to be when you were younger? And, did you have an interest in clothing from like an early age?
I always had an interest in clothing and sort of crafty things when I was younger. I had a very inspiring grandmother and great aunt who taught me how to sew and knit and crochet, possibly before I could walk or do anything else. My great aunt taught us how to make toys, out of bits of old fabric and stuff them with other bits of fabric, and then we'd knit clothes for them. And so I think I've always had that making thing in me. Actually, when I was at school, I wanted to be a TV camera person for some reason. Wow. I don't know why, whether I thought it was some glamorous career or not, I don't know. And then when it came to our options, you needed physics, and when you chose your options, you then got told, okay, which ones you actually were given. And they didn't give me physics, they gave me textiles instead. And I was gutted because I was like, well, now I can't be a camera person, what am I going to do? But it obviously led me down a path. And I had an amazing textiles teacher at school who, when we got to the final project at GCSE level, it was something like you had to make a clutch bag or some other random useless thing when you're 15. And I said to her that I wanted to make a suit, a tailored suit. And she kind of threw her arms up and went, okay. But she was amazing because she said, right. And I said, I've got a picture in my head. I know exactly what I want it to look like, but I can't find it. So I want to make it. And she was amazing. She said, well, if you put the work in, I will, stay after school and I will help you and we'll do this and get you through it. So I made a
amazing.
suit.
Isn't that important?
That.
Teachers that actually get involved like that can really kind of give you the confidence to kind of to do something like that.
It changed the path of everything, I think, because it made me realise that I think the exams were so kind of set in, you have to do this way, in this technique, and I kind of just was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do something completely different. But she was amazing.
And it's frightening, isn't it? Because I always worry with my kids and things that with sewing and with with knitting. These are all things that are being completely, actually maybe
lost.
More now, but they are kind of lost, aren't they? I mean, I don't know about you, Linda. Can you knit?
Yes. But I had the same thing. My mother taught me how to sew, and I had an aunt that was a very prolific knitter. And again, I was making clothes for my dolls, 7, 8 years old. And that's where I began my interest in it. So, you need that person in your life that I think sparks the initial interest. If you look at the biographies of a lot of designers, they began, Jean-Paul Gaultier was dressing his sister's dolls and things like that. So at an early age, it can actually be set off. Did you have a favourite outfit when you were young, George? Did you have something you really loved?
Oh my God, I did. I had a T-shirt. I grew up in the sort of late 70s. I had a T-shirt that was a photographic picture of a cat.
Oh.
And
that's very in at the moment, actually.
I think the coolest thing, I must have been about 5 or 6 at this point. But I used to have to wear it with a bright green cardigan that I did the top button done up, the only one, so that it looked like the cat was looking through curtains.
I love that.
And I loved it. I thought I was the bee's knees. That was this was probably 5 or 6.
That's brilliant. So obviously you went on to work for Gap in New York, didn't you? Can you tell us about that, how you ended up in New York?
I did a textiles and fashion degree, and after the degree, lots of people were going out and doing work experience all over the place. And our college had a link to a textile design studio in New York, and some of my friends had gone over to do work experience while I went to London to, supposedly get a job as a designer. So by the time they came back, I'd have the job and the flat, and they could stay with me, and I would be all set.
So organised.
And that was the plan. And then, of course, it didn't turn out that it was quite as easy as that back then. Nobody would give you a job. If you didn't have experience, you couldn't get experience without a job. It was really difficult. I still have all the rejection letters from every company I wrote to back then before computers.
So you keep them to spur you on and get angry, because sometimes if you keep something like that, it's like, right, I'll show you, I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that it was an actual letter from a company, headed notepaper saying, we're so sorry, but thank you. They're quite kind of historical items back in the day to prove my age.
Back in the day.
So I then So I went to New York and did some work experience in textile studios, and had a few years literally hand painting kind of florals or, golf people or scenics or sea life or whatever it was that we needed to do. And, the salesperson would go out and take huge folders around the streets of New York and sell them to Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, and all the big houses. And Gap had bought a few of my designs and had commissioned a few others and commissioned some T-shirts for the 96 Olympics, I think. That's showing my age. So I just built up a friendship with the people I was working with there. And and eventually they kind of said, okay, we need you in-house. And at that point, they hadn't hired any textile designers because they bought all their prints from studios. So I was kind of one of the first people to, start as a print designer. And I started in men's, back then it was called Men's Body, and it was sort of sleep and lounge. So I was doing all the print designs for pajamas and boxer shorts, and which of course there was hundreds in the men's department. Yeah, it was an amazing company to work for, and there were so many opportunities to be able to kind of sidestep into different departments, because everybody knew everybody. I made some of the best friends working there that I've had in life and I'm still in touch with now. All our kids grew up together and it was amazing. But my boss, who was a real mentor to me, he was the one who first pulled me over from the print studio. He was an amazing guy, and he still is. And he kind of moved around from men's to women's. So I did a little bit of work in womenswear, and then he moved to Gap Kids, and then he moved to Baby Gap. And so I kind of moved around with him. And then when he went to run Baby Gap as VP, he called me and said, right, I need you at Baby Gap. So I kind of did a bit of everything and then ended up at Baby Gap.
Yeah, we'll go on to in a second about the different businesses that you've worked for. But what was it like back then compared to now designing for kids?
I do see a difference. I feel like it was a bit more... I think it's a bigger difference from New York to the UK, and how companies work differently and how design is seen differently. And especially at a company like Gap, design was kind of top of the food chain. It was, so kind of respected as an art form, as where everything started. We had, huge concept rooms, and we had concept meetings, and we would, shop all over the world and bring back things that inspired us from all over the world into this huge concept room. And we would take weeks and months to bring these concepts together and work on palettes and colours and dye our own. And the different collections we would set up in, it just felt grander and a bit more kind of designed. It was design led. Whereas I feel like, and I think that probably goes across all, markets and genders really, but definitely for kidswear over there. But then what I found coming back to this country was that companies and brands are very buyer led than design led. Mm-hmm. So it's much more about, okay, what has worked, what the sales are, what the best sellers are, and then you add the newness into that as a mix. Whereas back in the Gap days, it was like, okay, design, tell us what's going to happen, tell us, the buyers would then pick from what we designed.
So it's kind of reverse, in reverse.
And in fact, the Gap has Gap items from the 80s and 90s are now highly desirable, aren't they? It's quite a market for the retro Gap items, and maybe that reflects what you're saying about how design was so important then. Because and if you look at it now, it was a moment in time. Yeah,
it's definitely changed a lot over the last 10 years. When it was at its prime, the leader at the top sailing the ship was creative. Micky Drexler was a huge creative visionary. And I think that filtered down all the way through the ranks, that creativity and design was paramount in the company. And I think there's very few big brands or retail businesses where the person at the top is creative and has a vision.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I think that's quite rare. I know obviously you get it with Apple and, big companies that you can clearly see who's design led and who isn't, and it comes from the top, I think.
And then obviously you came back to the UK, and then you had a big success, didn't you, with Little Bird. So obviously it's you and Jools Oliver that are working on it. But how did that come about? How did you get involved in that project?
Well, when I first came back to this country, I worked at Mothercare.
Yep.
And I was head of creative, so I was kind of looking at loads of different things. I was looking at the catalogue, photography, sort of branding, but also the clothing side and the print designers, graphic designers, and kind of because of my background, I could kind of dip into lots of things and support lots of teams. And they had just started having a conversation with Jools as a kind of perfect matchup of this wholesome family, wholesome life, but also with a nod to the 70s and 80s. And there was a real link there because Jules's mother used to dress, she has two sisters, and she used to dress all three of them in Mothercare in the 70s. Oh. And she saved all those clothes.
Mothercare.
Oh.
Yeah, but there wasn't anything else, was there? That's where our mothers and our grandmothers 80s. Went. Yeah. And so there was and Jools produced this on one of the first meetings, this kind of winceyette white baby gown with a tiny little embroidery on it. And she'd worn it, her two sisters had worn it, her mother had saved it, and her mother handed it down to Jools, and all Jules's kids had worn it. So there was this real nostalgic heirloom hand-me-down added on to her, just wholesome, real, personality and real family, that it was the perfect link. So they just had started having conversations with her. And I think because it was going to be something built from scratch, a whole brand in itself, and nobody really knew where it was going to go, they kind of called me in as this umbrella role to kind of go, right, come and meet her and see where this could go, because it's going to need lots more things, not just the design of something. It's going to need branding and labeling and packaging and a whole identity and concept behind it. So I was brought into one of the first few meetings, and we just got on so well. As soon as we met, we clicked, and we're from the same era. We liked the same things. We had the same kind of vision. So it was just easy, and it just kind of took off from there. So we've remained friends ever since. We just clicked.
It's a very distinctive look, I think. I loved it because it was really standalone from the rest of Mothercare. It had this retro vibe to it. And obviously it was colour, and you love colour. It was a very colourful brand as well. So, it was striking at the time when it was introduced as something very different.
We were kind of one of the first few brands to really go head to head with the pink and blueness of kidswear at that time.
Yeah, that's
kind
true.
Of refusing to go down that road and just keeping it as not neutral because it was bright colours, but keep it as unisex and as gender neutral as we could, because the heart and soul of it was rooted in, the 70s, growing up in the 70s, where there was no pink. And if there was, your brother wore it as well, and you wore hand-me-downs and you didn't have much, so you shared everything. And it was much more about being bright and fun and colourful and handing clothes down. And it was I think it was a lot less pink and blue focused back then.
So true, because looking back, because we were looking at pictures of ourselves, Linda and I, for promotions for the podcast, and actually looking through it, I've got hardly any pictures of me wearing anything that's pink or anything like that. It's like maroon, and it's like the green behind you there. It's like all these kind of colours that there wasn't so much the pink and blue. Was there?
And I think if there was pink, it was a bright pink. It was much more kind of primary. It was simple. I feel like it was a much simpler way. It's like when we were little, you looked outside, well, what's the weather? Is it t-shirt and shorts weather? Because do you know what I mean? It was simple. We had tops, we had t-shirts, jumpers and shorts and dresses.
Yeah.
It was a much simpler time. So I think that's the essence of what we wanted to keep with Little Bird.
Yeah, and I had no idea. I didn't realise that it was so early. It was 2012 that Little Bird started.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So we were working on it for a year before that. So, yeah, it launched in 2012. It just had last year we had its 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So what happened with Little Bird? Because Mothercare got bought out, or Mothercare ended, didn't it?
Yeah, so when Mother Care UK ended, that kind of automatically ended the relationship and the contract. So they kind of went their separate ways.
Now it's under Next, is it, the umbrella?
So
of
now
Next?
it's under Next. Yeah. So we picked up with Next over lockdown and started recreating and relaunching, because it had a couple of years kind of hiatus between the end of Mother Care and moving it to Next. We were waiting to find kind of the right place and the right partner, really. But yeah, so we had sort of a year in lockdown doing everything on Zoom. It was quite an interesting way to relaunch it, but it was really nice because then we could kind of really look at what worked, what didn't.
I was going to say that, but you must at that point you must have had like ones like designs and staples that you were like, right, okay, well this one really was, everybody loved this and it was really easy, to fly off the shelf. And then, I mean, how much do you do that? How much do you go with safe ones and then add in, like some new designs? How do you work it?
It's a real mix, because there are some key pieces that we bring back every season because the customer still likes it. She's still shopping for a certain T-shirt season after season. So because we're not trend led, we can have the same T-shirt in forever, as long as, we can keep bringing something back until the customer decides they don't want it anymore. So it's a real mixture of like key signature Little Bird things that we will always have. And then we've got the freedom to kind of go, right, let's try something that maybe is slightly more trend led, but in a Little Bird way, just so that we are relevant and keeping with the times. But then also we can go, right, let's do a wild card. Let's throw in some, crazy metallic high top trainer with a star on it that looks like something Elton John would have worn.
That would be the one that I'd go for.
Yeah, well, and it was one of those wild cards and it sold out and everybody loved it. And I think it's the nature of the way we work with Little Bird. We're doing something different to everything else that's out there. The UK market is definitely trend led in the way that, which is a good thing, but also it means if every brand is looking at the same trends, you end up with kind of a wash of a similar thing in all the stores on the high street. Whereas I think Little Bird has the kind of the benefit of being rooted in vintage and nostalgia, really, that we can step out of that, kind of trend parameter and go, you know what, we're going to do something really crazy, but it's fun and it's colourful and the kids are going to love it and it's different.
And when I first met you, it was interesting because you're working on a brand, weren't you, that was Anyware, and just recently as well at the press day, it was made reference to on the sustainability panel about the hems and all the different details that you had about how you could extend the longevity of the clothing. Yeah,
it was a really interesting project. I'd moved on from Mother Care, and I was put in touch with Jessie through kind of mutual networking friends. And I didn't really know who she was at the time. And we just, again, we got on, and she had this idea that she just had she had an 18-month-old daughter at the time. And she had an interest in kids' clothing and fashion anyway. I mean, she's incredibly stylish and has amazing, dress sense. And so, but she had this massive kind of sort of sack of clothes that her daughter had now grown out of, that she was kind of at odds of, it was that heart-wrenching, do I get rid of it? Do I save it? What do I do? Some of it she hasn't even worn because, they grow out of it in a few months. And so we just started talking, and she said, there has to be another way. Is there anything that we can do? She goes, because I don't want to design more kidswear just to add to the pile that I've already got. There's got to be... So we came up with this whole concept of, clothes that were natural fabrics, unisex and gender neutral styles, but also designed in a way that they would grow with your child. So you could get much more wear out of them, sort of 3 or 4 times more wear than something you would find, in a high street fast fashion chain. So it was really interesting because, again, we could do something different, and it really resonated with a lot of people of like, it was tapping into that kind of ethos of just buy better so that it lasts longer. And because it's natural fabrics and it was all made in England, you can then pass it down to somebody else because the quality is so good.
You did a couple of seasons, didn't you, with Anywhere? And we were chatting, weren't we? Because we grabbed a taxi together to King's Cross. We were chatting about the fact that it is true that brands need quite a few seasons, and I think Linda will, say that as well, is that brands need quite a few seasons for buyers to invest in you. I mean, what was it tricky? Was it frustrating a little bit with Anywhere that?
Yeah, it was tricky. I think the expectation was different to the reality of starting a brand from scratch, and I think nothing happens overnight, and I think you've got to kind of bed in and see what the brand evolves, over months or over years, because you've also got to find your customer, make sure you're talking to your customer, and that in itself will evolve, because certain things you design and you produce, the customer may not want, and certain things they do. So then that's the whole process of season after season. Some styles get dropped and you don't do that again because that didn't work, and some really resonate with the customer. You're like, right, how can we do more of that? Where can we? So you go on this journey with your customer when you launch something, and yeah, unfortunately we didn't have the time to be able to play that out. So yeah, it was a quite short-lived project, but it was amazing. It was amazing to work with Jessie, and it was amazing just the process, because it's also a learning curve for me, because having come from these big, kind of iconic brands, this was starting something completely from scratch and having it made in the UK on a very small scale, which is very different to anything I'd ever done. So I learned so much from it, and it was an amazing experience, really.
You have a new project.
I do. Yes, I do. I have just started my own label. It's a womenswear concept at the moment. And yeah, I think I've always struggled finding clothes that I liked and that fitted. I don't wear prints or patterns, and I think probably coming from a print design background,
I don't want to see another
floral
print.
and go, yeah, I would always look at a floral and go, oh, that repeats a bit off, or do you know what I mean? I think
or it's not good enough. It's like, it's got to be your print, or it's like
yeah, but I think it's that oversaturate. I've seen too many of them over the years, so
yeah,
I just don't. And I always like to wear just solid colour. I wear a lot of denim, and I like natural fabrics, and I think I always struggle to find the right thing. And I know in my head, it's going back to this suit when I was 15, I know exactly what I'm looking for in my head. And I get so frustrated that my husband's like, just stop scrolling and searching and just make it. If you know what you want, just make it. So it kind of stemmed from that a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm kind of focusing on kind of really simple, beautiful shapes in natural fabrics, in bright colours, and shapes that you can really like wear out and dress up, or that you can, kind of wear trainers. I have a skirt where I'd say it's kind of like a cotton version of a taffeta ball skirt, but the fabric is cut in a way that it has that sheen, that it feels kind of taffeta and bulky and weighty, but it's 100% cotton and made in the UK. And I always say I wanted something that I could wear to the BAFTAs or to put the bins out. And that's, because
don't we all?
Exactly. It's like life is too short to save something for best and have things in your wardrobe that, I'm going to save that. There's no point.
I am such a believer in that, honestly. Like, I'm such a believer in life is too short. Like, like if you've got something really, really nice, like people are like, well, I just keep it in my wardrobe and never wear it. Like, I'm like, right, you've got to wear it, don't you? Yeah. You've got to kind of give it.
Just wear. Yeah, that's the thing. I wanted something that was so versatile that you would feel great. So I made this skirt that, I wore it with a white shirt and heels to an awards ceremony. And then I wore it with, a sweater and trainers down the pub. And it's that kind of like, make your wardrobe work harder, but invest in something that's really well made and made in natural fabrics. So
you're getting your cost per wear there, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about investing in clothes that you've absolutely fallen in love with. And if you fall in love with a piece, you're going to wear it on repeat as many times as you can.
I remember years ago, we used to do that. I mean, you would buy one coat for the winter and you'd wear it every day. That would be your coat. You wouldn't have 5 or 6.
Yeah, exactly.
I do that now, but it's like a extravagant one.
Yeah, it's true though. It's like you'd have one pair of school shoes and one pair of party shoes.
Yes.
And if you weren't going to a party at the weekend, you had to wear your school shoes.
So we were chatting as well. It was about, obviously, with your new label, that about sustainability, and it's something that you're very interested in. And we were talking about the balancing up of sustainability, because it's such a word. It's like sustainable. It's like one word for so many, like a spectrum of different features or aspects, and I always think that it's something that's like, it's balances up, isn't it? Because we were talking about producing something in India, and it can be sustainable fabric, but then obviously you've got to import it, so carbon footprint. So can you talk to me about that a little bit, about how you kind of balancing up everything and what you were thinking about with your label?
Yeah, I mean, it is a real juggle, and I feel like you can't do everything. Yeah. But you can do as much as you can. And I think it's being honest and transparent about what you are doing and championing something, because I feel like any brand starting today, you have a responsibility to go down an ethical path and be as sustainable as you can be in your field. Obviously, there's certain things that are less sustainable than others, but I think certain things should be a given in every company now, recyclable packaging, recycled packaging, organic fabrics. I think the whole polyester conversation hasn't really started. And I think that was one of my real kind of spearheading ideas with Colour Story, is that anything I was looking for that I could find that I did like was made out of polyester. And the more you start to look into polyester and how many different fabrics, whether it's, satin, sequin, faux fur, faux leather, it's all plastic. And actually, that's the bit of the conversation that I don't think is happening. And even more so when you start to kind of really get down to a granular level. You can have your organic t-shirts, organic sweatshirts, organic joggers. You could be somebody who will only wear organic cotton denim with less water usage and all that kind of stuff, and be a real kind of eco warrior, and then go to a party in a polyester dress. And that kind of, in a battle didn't make sense to me, of like, hang on a minute, do these people not realise that the dress they're putting on to go to a party is polyester, or do they not care? And that's the battle. So I kind of wanted to go, right, I'm only going to use natural fabrics, but I'm going to make them look so luxurious that you don't need to then go and, buy polyester. And I feel like the things that you can then add to my collection, you can buy them on Vintage, you can buy them on eBay. It's like if I'm going to wear sequins, I'm going to buy something secondhand because it's already out there,
Yeah. It also seems a lot of modern textiles have a little bit of this added in. So it will be wool, but then it will have 10% this and 5% this and 5% something else. And it's harder to buy a pure fabric now, or a pure, one product fabric. And so the person at the party might have been sold as a silk dress or a silky dress, but then it will have 20% of something else in it as well. So it's quite hard to get away from that, particularly, I think, on the high street. They seem to be the worst offenders for that. So I don't know if they actually are, how aware people are of how mixed up it all is.
Yeah, agreed. And I think especially now we're in this world of online shopping. I mean, I'd scour websites purely to see if I can find out what the fabric content is, because I think they're very clever at tricking the customer. And when you look at where it says fabric, it says velvet. Yeah. Or it says satin, or it says taffeta, and I'm like, that's not a fabrication. That's that's a technique of how that fabric was made. Yeah. But actually, so it's a lot harder. You have to go through more steps to find out. Oh, it's polyamide or acetate or whatever it is. But yeah, they mix it, and even organic cotton. When you get into baby wear, organic cotton, you can have 5% elastane, and under a certain amount, you can still say that it's 100% organic fabric.
Wow.
And you go, okay, but cheeky, it's got elastane in it, and elastane's plastic.
And then if you could go back in time and give yourself, your younger self, like a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think that I would just say keep going. Just keep going, because I had some tough times growing up, and I feel like I've heard this question asked a lot before, and I think if I'd have told myself if I'd gone back in time and told myself anything, it would have changed the trajectory of where I would have ended up. So I feel like I wouldn't actually tell myself anything, because I went through tough times, I had to learn from those, and I made decisions based on what I'd been through and what I was going through that took me to places I never thought I would be. I think, I went to New York to get away, and I wouldn't have, had I not done that, I wouldn't have met my husband, I wouldn't have had the experiences I've had. So I don't think I would tell my younger self anything to do anything differently. I'd just say, just keep going. Things are going to be okay. Keep going. You're going to make it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Kidswear Therapy.
Thank you for having me. I
you.
needed some therapy, or am I dishing out the therapy?
Well, actually, I think you gave me therapy with that. You've made me
Yeah.
actually think to myself, do you know what, Kate? If you changed anything in your life, you wouldn't be where you are, what you do, and I wouldn't want to change anything. So thank you. You've given me
Good. Well,
Kidswear Therapy today.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you for having me. It's been so nice. I love it.
George has had an interesting career, hasn't she?
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, all the talk of New York and the Gap, and I mean, what an experience. And to be working for Gap at that time, Micky Drexler in charge, the creative side of it, being the driver, it just doesn't happen now.
And it's interesting as well, isn't it? Her experience from obviously working with big brands, and working with Mother Care, and then obviously on her own personal projects with her new clothing line.
Yeah, Colour Story. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And I noticed she was wearing the skirt when we met her in London a couple of weeks ago, and it was very striking. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else she's got up her sleeve.
And I like there's one for the tall girls, which is great.
Yeah, not so much for me, but
one for me. Right, brilliant. Well, see you soon, Linda.
Yep, next guest is getting lined up. So here we go.
With Kidswear Therapy.